President Donald Trump said Friday that there could be pain ahead in the markets as the U.S. and China accelerate toward an all-out trade war, but insisted things will settle down in the long term. Trump and his counterpart, Xi Jinping, have played a high-stakes game of tit-for-tat this week, trading threats of $50 billion import tariff packages. Trump played the latest card Thursday night with a $100 billion addition.Stock indexes are roller-coastering, with futures tanking each time Beijing or Washington lands a new economic body blow. Yet Friday afternoon the markets had stabilized to the level where they had opened Monday morning. In an interview on WABC radio in New York that was taped Thursday night and aired Friday morning, Trump allowed that more chaos lies ahead. "I'm not saying there won't be a little pain," he said, "but the market's gone up 40%, 42%. So we might lose a little bit of it. But we're going to have a much stronger country when we're finished, and that's what I'm all about." "We may take a hit, and you know what? Ultimately we're going to be much stronger for it." The Dow Jones Industrial Average was down 400 points at midday on Friday, mirroring stock performances from the past 4 days, but rebounding after initial panic dissipated. China vowed to fight the U.S. at any cost after Trump slapped the additional $100 billion in tariffs on Chinese goods and escalated an already bitter trade war. In Beijing, the Commerce Ministry said China doesn't want a trade war, but isn't afraid to fight one. China will dedicate itself to the end, and at any cost, and will definitely fight back firmly if the U.S. persists in its protectionism, the ministry said in a statement.On on Thursday. Trump also instructed his Secretary of Agriculture to implement a plan to protect our farmers and agricultural interests. China's illicit trade practices, ignored for years by Washington, have destroyed thousands of American factories and millions of American jobs, Trump said in a statement announcing the decision. It came after the U.S.on Tuesday said it would impose 25% duties on $50 billion of imports from China, and China quickly retaliated by listing $50 billion of products that it could hit with its own 25% tariffs. The Chinese list Wednesday included soybeans, the biggest U.S. export to China, and aircraft up to 45 tons in weight. Also on the list were American beef, whiskey, passenger vehicles and industrial chemicals. Earlier in the week, Beijing announced separate import duties on $3 billion of U.S. goods in response to the Trump administration's duties on all steel and aluminum imports, including from China. Republican lawmakers from Western and Midwestern states have begun to tell the White House that they fear a big hit to U.S.farm exports.Trump said in a statement Thursday evening that his latest proposed tariffs came in light of China's unfair retaliation. He also said U.S.Trade Representative Andy Lighthizer had determined China has repeatedly engaged in practices to unfairly obtain America's intellectual property. That's a reference to an ongoing Section 301 investigation that led to the first round of tariff proposals. The probe concluded that China systematically tries to unfairly acquire U.S. intellectual property by requiring that Americans doing business there agree to joint ventures with Chinese nationals and transferring key technology to them. But the Trump administration is signaling that it's taking a long view, betting that Beijing has more skin in the game than Washington and would be more significantly hurt if America, its biggest export market, were suddenly more costly. The president added Thursday that he has instructed Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue to use his broad authority to implement a plan to protect our farmers and agricultural interests from unfair trade practices. "I will never allow unfair trade practices to undermine American interests," he said. Wall Street has alternatively panicked and deep-breathed through a week-long Sino-American tussle. In Wednesday's trading, the Dow Jones Industrial Average started hundreds of points down due to losses in overnight futures, but rebounded by day's end. Late Thursday, after Trump's latest announcement, Dow futures dropped by 400 points in advance of Friday trading. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders told reporters that afternoon that investors may have a little bit of short-term pain, but we're certainly going to have long-term success. This year the markets have appeared to be playing dice with house money, swinging more than 3,000 points from high to low, representing more than 11% of the Dow's valuation. Tuesday's U.S. list of planned targets for tariffs was 43 pages long, running the gamut from medical supplies and television sets to cars and chemicals. Beijing shoved back hard with a smaller, more targets list including U.S.-sourced soybeans, beef, and airplanes. Beijing took less than 11 hours to respond, a speed that led to a steep sell-off in global markets. Still, Trump insisted Wednesday that we are not in a trade war with China. That war was lost many years ago by the foolish or incompetent people who represented the U.S. He tweeted. Now we have a trade deficit of $500 billion a year, with intellectual property theft of another $300 billion. We cannot let this continue. He added 2 hours later in another tweet, when you're already $500 billion down, you can't lose. Neither the U.S. nor the Chinese tariffs have actually gone into effect, leaving open the possibility that the Trump administration is trying to establish a bargaining position for a future negotiation. I would anticipate, Sanders told reporters, that if there are no changes to the behavior of China and they don't stop the unfair trade practices, then we would move forward with tariffs. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross said Wednesday morning on CNBC that months of economic diplomacy were still ahead. Think about it, even shooting wars end with negotiations, he said. The president is a lifelong deal maker. This isn't the first deal he's gone into. It isn't the first controversy he's gone into, and I doubt that it will be the last one. And White House Chief Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow told a Fox Business Network audience that Tuesday's tariff announcements were just the first proposals. I doubt if there would be any concrete actions for several months. We'll see how that plays out. Nothing concrete has actually happened, he said. U.S.-made goods that appear to face added tariffs in China would include Tesla electric cars, Ford's Lincoln Auto models, Gulfstream jets made by General Dynamics, and Brown-Forman Corporation's Jack Daniel's whiskey. China's list struck key agricultural commodities produced in states from Iowa to Texas that voted for Trump in the 2016 presidential election. The U.S. targeted products that benefit from Chinese industrial policy, including its Made in China 2025 initiative to replace advanced technology imports with domestic products in strategic industries such as advanced and robotics. But Reuters reported that Beijing's appears aimed at inflicting political damage by targeting market sectors based in parts of the